I'm trying to convert, and it's been really difficult.
Oh, you're supposed to.
Oh, yeah. Make sure they'll come on for that.
Yeah. It's only 20 some below, so it's really chill.
Yeah.
Committed tonight.
Yes, that's for sure.
Oh, hey, what's up down there?
What's up? I almost called Carrie Clark and said, would you give me a ride home tonight?
Could I do what for you?
I
Do you
almost
need a
called
ride?
and said, would you give me a ride home tonight? I found a
We
ride.
could have carpooled.
We only live on that day.
Where we're taking you, you always do that.
I said, could you drop me off and I'll walk through your backyard? Except she has like a football field backyard.
I would just give you a ride.
Wow.
I just turned my meter off.
Yeah.
Uber.
It doesn't
As soon
cost
as you
you
pass
that
your
much.
house, yeah, you're on the clock.
Exactly.
I love that Uber commercial with a guy.
Setting a
His
price
internet
surge.
bothering me.
Well, we will call the meeting to order. Tyler had let me know that he will not be able to make the meeting tonight. He is up in the balmy climes of Minnesota.
Oh, man.
And so, Gail, if you'd call us in for roll call, please.
Brian?
Here?
Tyler's absent. Kim?
Here.
John?
Here.
And Deb?
Here.
Okay.
And I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
All opposed? Stands approved. And we had Sean Barber listed for public forum, but might have froze out the soccer club tonight. Is there anyone else here for public forum? Okay, not hearing anything. We'll go into the 2017-18 district priorities and annual goals.
I'm going to bring those up with you, Gail. From the administrative team, anything turned to red?
Yes, we did change something to red, and it has to do with the measuring of student engagement. So if this is okay, I'm gonna take, when we talk about this is part of my board report too. And Deb joined us for IPI training.
Yeah.
I did.
And it
That's
was
awesome.
really good. And
That's good.
just so that you all know, we really did, you know, we took the feedback that we received at SIAC, and we also took the feedback that we received at IPI training, and we did a little bit of course changing, just a little bit. I mean, we're still on the same course, but we're really going to involve teachers more in that process. So we are going to train teachers. So teachers are going to be doing the actual data collection. Administrators have got that background knowledge, and they'll be part of those discussions when we take that faculty look at the data that we get. But we really did take to heart, okay, if we want there to be that ownership piece and not to have that evaluative feel to it, we said, okay, we're going to do this. So what we've done, because there is no, we really do want to be true to the whole IPI process, because there's no more IPI trainings this year, and you really do need to go through that training. And I think, Deb, you would,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
you would have to, I think you would agree with that.
Yep.
There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is, today was the last day we all staff have heard the same message. And we are forming a lead team in each building, and that will be with the instructional coach and 2 or 3 teachers in each building. From there, when we have those teachers in place, we are going to do a half-day training late January, early February, and that half-day training will be just give a background overview, a little bit of an overview, and then what that scoring looks like. We'll do some practice rounds. They'll be part of the scoring, but they won't do the actual scoring, because we feel that they need to go through that training with Dr. Valentine, and they'll get to do that in the fall. But we want them to have some background on it, so we've set 2 dates to do the actual IPI data collection. Late February, late April. And we wanted to wait till Iowa assessments were done, because we know from going through this that you want it to be a typical week. We're not going to do a crazy week or a testing week, and we want the buildings to be done with that testing. So we said the last weekend in February would be one, and then the last weekend in April would be the other, before things start getting crazier with the end of the school year. Those we'll be collecting baseline data at that time. We will have those teams of teachers will, in each building, we're not going to come together as a whole district, but each team will get together in their building with that staff to take a look at what the data looks like, and then from there, we'll set goals from that. But we can't go in there with preconceived notions of what that is. And I think it's really important to know that when we're looking at student engagement, that student engagement is really student thinking, higher order thinking. This is not gauging if students are bored, because I can't make somebody like something. You can't make somebody like something. But what I can do is I can tell if somebody's engaged, and if that engagement is higher order thinking or lower order thinking. What kind of thinking are we asking students to do? So if kids go home and say, what'd you do today? Nothing, I'm bored. Well, I think that we need to work on what kind of questions and that can we ask, what information do we need to give parents on that? But this is really about how are teachers engaging students in the classroom. And there's not really a hierarchy. We need to remember that there's 6 different levels there. We talked about that earlier. And that 4 of those levels are going to happen in a lesson. 4 of those levels should happen throughout a lesson. Sometimes a teacher needs to stand up and might have to give directions, and that's okay. Sometimes a teacher might have to do some reviewing, if that's what those students need. And then you've got the time when kids are going to be doing some group work, and you want that group to be some higher order thinking. How are we asking kids to think? And then when we were going to the buildings and giving this message, one of the teachers said, so you're telling me that if I went into a classroom, or if you as a data collector go into a classroom and we're giving a test, that's an automatic 2 or 3. Actually, you're taking that snapshot, but no. If you take the snapshot of what's happening in the classroom, but then you're gathering evidence, you're going to go see what the student's doing. You're going to ask the student, hey, what are you working on here? Or you're going to look at what they're doing. And if it's higher order thinking questions that you're asking those kids to do in that setting, it's an you're always erring on that high side. It's going to be it would be a 6. Now, if it's lower order because that they needed some skill practice, then that's a 3. If you're engaged in the work that the kids are doing. If you're not engaged in the work the kids are doing, then it's a 2. So, all in all, we've had quite a few responses to teachers that would like to be a part of this. So we'll finalize that by the end of the week, and then we'll move forward with that. So we're excited. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Deb? I mean, you were part of it with us.
Yeah, I spent a day with it, and I was so glad that I went, because I think I might have erred on that side of thinking it was more about how do the kids feel about it? Are they happy? Are they excited to go to school? And it really wasn't that, to Carrie's point. It's more about, you said it was about how the students were thinking, but also how is the teacher engaging the student, in a sense, I came away from that thinking that I was very glad that I went, because it turned out to be something that was different than I originally thought, and in a good way. It is scientific, right? I mean, to Carrie's point, I think at the end of the day, they were kind of, is it right to say certified? Like you had to pass a test.
Had to pass. Yeah, we as educators, we can't go on to the next level if we didn't pass the assessment piece.
Yeah, and it has to be that way. It's not evaluative. It's a scientific process, and it needs to be repeatable, because what you want to do is for the focus of the conversation, and Carrie's going to tell me if I got this wrong. Did you take the test? I did not. Thank you. I was afraid. No. I was afraid. But it was. It's important that this be repeatable, and that it be objective, so that the good conversations can happen are about what you saw and not haggling about the scores. Right? It's kind of what I took away from it. Let's make this very transparent, very I was impressed, and I think it's going to be really good. But I can see, to your point, that you would need to go through that training in order. It would be difficult to just jump in.
Well, what happens is when people, I mean, this is what our take on it was.
Mhm.
I mean, there's been years of research done on why the protocol is the way it is. For us to go in on 8 hours of training and say, you know what, we're going to do it our way. Look, you change something at that point.
Right.
So we feel it is important to be true to the way that the program is, because there's a reason why the data is collected the way it is. And if we you start tweaking things, you know what happens when you start doing that. So that's why we want people to be on board with that, but we also want to make sure we're being true to it. So we're kind of morphing it our own way, and then if something would come up this spring and they do that, we'll jump on board if we can. But we've already let teachers know that that training would be in the fall, and we'll try to do what we did this year and have that training, if we can, just in-house here. Like we were lucky that we didn't have to go anywhere. They came to us, so that would be our hope.
One of the interesting things that I learned there was just that, I guess you could call it the direct correlation between this more higher order learning and test scores. There really was something seen there. And what I thought was really interesting was that VOTEC schools typically have the highest level of engagement, student engagement, because I think what he said was that students see they see how what they're doing is very applicable. So it was really interesting, and I think I can't wait to see what these guys do with it. I think it's a good thing, and I think parents could understand it. I think you could explain it to parents, and they'd be like, "I see what you're doing about that. It makes sense." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Any questions for Carrie? I have one for you, Carrie.
Yes, sir.
As far as, I don't know how, had you had some exposure to this before we had set this kind of as a district priority, or what kind of feedback did you get? You still think it's a good priority after you went through the process, or just kind of fill me in on that a little bit?
I personally, yes, I do think, because I think that we've used AIW scoring, for example, when we look at a higher order thinking. We've looked at a correlation between what we, what we wanted from a task for students to a correlation between what we got from students. This is just another piece of data of looking at how are our students as engaged as we think they are. So I think it's another way to look at that. Now we do need to remember also that there are typical ranges of numbers, and when you look at that higher order thinking, you're going to see that as a percentage of the day, but it's when you look at a whole percentage, and when you look at your whole day, it's not going to be 50% of your day. I mean, the average Heartland school, I think that if you look at the 6, which is independently engaged and higher order thinking, I want to say that one was, I'd have to look it up, was like maybe 16% of a student's day, and that's an average Heartland school. So I wouldn't even want to project where I think we will land on this, but I think it's, I equate it from, we're doing great things, and if you look at what does good student engagement get you, if you look at what the data says, people could look at that and say, well, why are you looking at this? You're already there. You already have good test scores. You already have all those things. Well, I would say that's when it's the hardest, is when you want to move from good to great. Because now we're really looking at nuances in the things that we're doing. And when I say nuances, I mean in the way, some of the ways maybe we're teaching in certain classes and things like that. I'm not saying sometimes it's always a fruit basket upset, but that can be the hardest. The hardest sell sometimes is when my gosh, if it says that the reason that you're doing this is because you want to get your test scores up, why would you want to get something up that's already in the 90s? Well, because it's still the right thing to do. That's why you want to do it. And we don't have good, I mean, we have our gut feeling of what kids are doing, and I think by getting, I didn't know what I thought about this, but I do think by getting teachers in there, the evaluation piece is gone. Now it's peers just, and there's no names. You're not gonna write down, oh, I was in John's room and this is what John did, blah, blah. No, you don't have time to do that. You are walking in, you're taking literally a mental snapshot, you're gathering evidence of what that snapshot is, you're going out, you're scoring, you're gonna have a quick little discussion as to do you agree on it, and you're into the next room. And you're gonna, all day, you're just going around your building doing just that. So you're not putting, you're not gonna, it's not data to drill down, so you could come to me at the end of the day and say, could I see my data? No, if you wanna know what your data is, what you wanna do is you wanna talk to an instructional coach and say, hey, could you kind of do like an IPI run through in my class? I'd really like you to gather, just come in and out of my room 5 times in one day. I'd like to just get a snapshot of what my room looks like. That's what you could do, but you wouldn't do that with IPI data in a big data collection day, because that's not what the data's about. Does that make sense? But I'm actually excited about it, so I think we all are. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, maybe not all of us.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
It is exciting.
Well, thank you for the feedback. Okay, administrative reports. Or was there any other items on that?
Anyone else have anything that they want to
district priorities?
bring up?
I think we kind of felt like that was going to be a longer discussion, so we kind of considered that
Part of the news. I do
Oh, you
though.
want more? All right. Let's,
I would like to, because I think Tim and I had talked just briefly, and just to add something to the administrative report, would you, it's not necessarily as far as a line item, but it is an administrative report. I want to make sure that the board understands kind of where we're at and where we're going with what might be conference realignments, things like that, because they may be getting questions, and I want to make sure that they understand where that's at.
All right, so 2 years ago, I came to you guys and gave you kind of a synopsis of where we were at, and our plan was to take a look at going into the Raccoon River Conference this coming fall, in the fall of 18. And with our bed numbers and where they've been, we're pretty much decided that we want to back that up a little bit to the fall of 2020. All right, so I have talked to the Heart of Iowa about that we're kind of moving back our date a little bit. We look at the fall of 20. And honestly, I think it was good for us and for the conference itself. They asked us as soon as we said we were going to the Raccoon, we said, well, can you wait and maybe see if we can bring some other teams in? And that just hasn't happened. And honestly, the teams that they're bringing in would be smaller teams, and most of them don't want to come into the Heart of Iowa if we're in the Heart of Iowa. So apparently we're this big, powerful school. So anyway, I would like the board's blessing, if that's exactly what I need. I'm not sure. I'm just asking for it, I guess. To go ahead and send a letter to the Raccoon River Conference telling them our desire to join their conference in 2020. And the Heart of Iowa, honestly, is starting to move forward as if we're going anyway. They've already had a meeting with some other schools, and there's a lot more interest. So it seems all of a sudden that we are possibly leaving. One of the things that will be good for us is with our beds numbers now going up, this year I believe it's 366, which is a jump of about 29. It'll give us a little more comparable size with the schools in the Raccoon River Conference. Give us an opportunity to, day in and day out, be playing the types of teams that we would play in the postseason. And some of the concerns have been, travel has been probably the biggest one they get as far as questions. Our average trip right now is 32 miles. And if we go into Raccoon, our average trip would be 47. And that's including going to Winterset or going to Carroll, where currently right now we go to Jefferson, we go to PCM as our 2 farthest trips. So it'd be a little bit more, but really not enough, in my estimation, to make it not worth going. So coaches and I have been discussing it quite a bit, and really haven't had a whole lot of resistance to that. There's some hesitation on a few of the sports, but honestly, overall, it's the best for the size of school that we are and where we're going.
So Tim, I
Yep.
have a couple questions just to make sure I understood that. It was funny because took my daughter to the eye doctor today, and she asked me that. I was like, I didn't even know. It was very timely. Thank you. So our numbers are high to make it so that we would be in the Raccoon River Conference, the same kind of, we would be on equal footing maybe as the schools in that. But we
Yeah.
don't want to go yet? Is that what I was, because
Well-
I kind of heard like reasons for why we would go, but then to say we would stay.
Well,
Just have a question.
yeah, when we talked about going at 18, and a lot of the reason why we started looking at it was our middle school programs, which the numbers are incredible. A lot of the schools in the heart of Iowa cannot give us the number of games that we need based on the kids that we have. And unless you institute a cut program, which we don't want to do, I gotta find games for those kids. And Raccoon is much better for us, suited for us. And then as those kids move up, it just makes sense that we would then continue to do that. So one thing that I need to share with you that's probably relevant here, the plan is over the next 2 years before we join as a high school would be to start scheduling more of those teams for our middle school programs as well. So I guess to answer your question, with our numbers increasing in the student population, it's just, we believe it's the best fit for us to maybe make a move to a different conference.
Okay.
More competitive.
Because then I heard you say that Heart of Iowa. I'm just trying to understand.
Well, the Heart of Iowa is they're preparing.
For us to leave.
They asked us, yes, 2 years ago, or a year ago, they asked us to consider staying, try and bring other teams in. That didn't happen. Nobody was interested in coming in.
Right.
Now that we're kind of giving a different date, but this is definitely what we want to do, they have already started moving forward, trying to get teams to come in.
Okay, so they're
Yeah.
prepared for the 2020
Yes.
too. They're not saying,
Nope.
wait a minute, we didn't think you would be
No,
staying.
and
Oh, I
probably
get
things
you.
that you have heard. I know
Okay.
Tyler talked to me after the last meeting that he had somebody from Nevada. They've got us going next year.
Yeah.
We're already gone. There was an article in the paper over in Jefferson that had us going and listed 3 teams that were coming in. That was all going to happen immediately.
That's not
No.
okay.
We're trying to do it in a process that makes sense over a few years, prepare ourselves, and start scheduling it out that way.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That makes sense.
Tim, do you think there's enough, I don't know, public interest for this to be a public forum, to have people have a chance to, I don't know, come to us and speak on this, or you just think it's really, you're not seeing a lot of
Well, if
resistance?
there's
or-
people that are against it, I'll say I haven't heard a whole lot of that.
Okay, okay.
There's been a little bit. I've had people, just some concerns, like in travel. Some of the other concern, one of the ones I got was, well, we're not winning every conference championship right now. That depends on what your goals are. If your goal is to win conference championships, then we probably need to stay here. If our goal is to prepare ourselves the best that we can for postseason play, then I would say we're probably looking at Raccoon. So, honestly, no, I don't think so. But if it's something that you guys feel we need to do, that's
Yeah.
certainly something.
No, I just wanted to get your
Yeah.
kind of sense of it. I haven't heard a lot of feedback myself, but they may not either, so. Any other questions for Tim? No?
No, I appreciate that. Like just the thought of what, like as we grow, there's so many considerations, right? We've done years and years for facilities things and teacher budgets and all that stuff. And I don't know, it's easy to, at least for me, to forget about all of the athletic growth as well, not just coaching staff, but what it looks like in our conference. So thank you for kind of managing that whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And since it kind of fits in with what we talked about a couple of years ago, I don't know, do you guys want to go ahead and make a motion that?
Well, we don't have it on as our agenda.
Okay,
So we
this
have
is
to
just a
wait until the
discussion topic.
22nd if you want it as an action board agenda.
How quick do you need it, Tim?
Well, I do know that they actually have a meeting coming up this Friday that will involve ADs, principals, and superintendents in the Raccoon to discuss their expansion, their future.
Okay.
And so I would like to be able to at least tell them that that's kind of what our plan is. So,
Okay.
but again, I didn't know if that was something you guys had to vote on or not.
Yeah.
Do they require that they have board approval for any type of move there, Tim? We could put it on the February meeting, but I guess my question is.
Well, okay, I guess let me back up. What I'm asking is that can I give them a letter of interest? Then they, according to their bylaws, have to officially invite us, at which point you would then say
Approval.
yes or no.
Yeah, sounds like.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I should have led with that.
Well,
so.
that.
Well, I was just, that's to make sure. we
That's
do
gonna
what
be
you need.
embarrassing if they don't invite us.
All right, thanks, Tim.
If I can, no thanks.
How embarrassing.
Anything else for administrative report?
I don't think so. Anything else that anyone has?
Okay, announcements and celebrations.
Anything you'd like to share? Pretty quiet group.
Yeah, it is. It's like it's 2 below outside or something.
Is
Board
it a
reports.
celebration? Do we still have like 50% of the students gone, or are the illnesses over?
We're getting
Is that
Gilbert.
something to celebrate?
I hope so.
Well, I hope so. Did we have to call the health department?
Every.
We had a,
Board
we had a little
reports.
rough, we had a rough patch right before Christmas.
I know, yeah, that
It
was
seems
pretty
like
tough.
it's got a lot better.
Do you feel comfortable with what you shared about your training? Did you have anything else you wanted to share in board reports?
No, I do want to say though, like I know I kind of joked about this, but I went to observe it. I couldn't be, they were actually like, I couldn't be certified because I'm not an educator. I mean, I wouldn't know how to do it. You know, so I mean, it wasn't really I know I was kind of joking about no, I was too afraid, but it really has to be somebody who knows what they're doing that scoring. But I did get to watch and.
Well, you went out with us and you, I mean.
I mean, I got to
you went
pretend like I
classrooms
was scoring, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. I would say maybe in the fall, if you said you did it, if the guy was open to it, it might be interesting for somebody else to attend it if that's not an added cost or something, because it is kind of interesting and eye-opening.
Yeah, I would love to do it. I
Yeah.
remember I had it on my calendar and the dates just did not work with
Yeah.
my work schedule,
I have
but
conflict.
I think you would like it. I learned a lot. So. But no, that was it. Sorry.
No.
I think sorry.
I had a
Go for it.
PowerPoint. No.
No, I have no anything official other than to say that the last month or month and a half, we've done a lot of stuff on the communication committee, and then also met with a handful of patrons who are responsible for the Vote Yes committee for the bond, as well as with the Hale Architecture. I mean, Amy's done the majority of the actual like work to get these things done, but it's been really productive meetings, just getting, again, kind of like revitalizing the communication committee with some new faces, some new ideas, new people, really like aligning themselves around getting information out about the bond. So one of the things that came out of that, and I don't have this in front of me, but we put together a full calendar kind of meetings, social media, blog posts, and videos that we're going to kind of release leading up to the April 3rd. Mm-hmm. Yes, I got the date right finally. Vote, and it's really exciting. We've got a lot of people contributing to it, so it's just been a very productive. It's the first time outside of this context in which we actually talked about the bond, and so it's fun to see other patrons get in and get excited about it and want to participate. In fact, bring like fresh, great ideas too. So it's really fun as a board member to hear people talking and being excited about something that's sort of been like we've talked about for a long time now, but then to see expand out. So thank you, Amy, for organizing all that, and I think it's been really good.
I think one thing we've learned too, because we are also involved and we know all of this, we are learning through the petition signing last week and even some members on the communication team, the new fresh faces that Brian was talking about. Even though Mr. Beecher has sent great updates.
No one reads their emails, what we have learned.
Right. And so people aren't in the know, and so that just is helping us as we put together the videos and we need to know, pushing out what kind of information, and we really need to start from ground zero again to make sure we can be as transparent as possible.
I'm just gonna like use that as a lead-in. I've been working with the foundation. Just, you know, I have a little bit of extra time in my personal life now that I can do some of these things I've never been able to do. And communication is huge because these emails can go out. You know, the foundation or the Rock Hop is a month away, and you know, it just doesn't matter how many mailings go out or emails go out. People are oblivious to the fact that this is happening. So I think it's really important for everyone in this room to communicate and to, if you're on Facebook, to share these things so that people can come, because the foundation is so important to us and to, you know, the extras that we can't purchase, or the things that we can't do that we'd love to do for our students. And you know, yesterday when we met, there are very few RSVPs. You know, there's interest and there's conversations, but I think we just need to be out there and pushing a little bit. This is going to be fun. It's always fun. The Rock Hop's always fun.
I think what's interesting too about the foundation and the Rock Hop is they seem to do a really good job staying connected with parents who have their kids have graduated all of Gilbert. Whereas like a lot of the things I think about is like school websites, school emails, but those aren't necessarily going out to patrons who still vote,
Right.
but don't have students here. So that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what kind of methods do you think are going to be the most effective for communicating if email is not very good? What's kind of rise into the top as the one or two best ways to get your message through?
We got a huge response for wearing sandwich boards and walking around the park.
I can dance.
Well, I'm going to be
You
interested
can.
to see you
Yeah.
doing that.
Justin Timberlake. Yeah.
I think Amy's done a good job pulling together a bunch of different website materials from other districts who are either recently gone through this or are going through it now. Bigger schools with maybe more budget or whatever, different things. And so I think effective stuff is a simple 1 or 2 page thing on our site that does stuff, and then secondarily, it's probably some really small shareable videos. So if you think about videos that are 3 minutes or less.
Okay.
Right, that can travel beyond our website or beyond our email. They can be shared on Facebook or Instagram or any of those, Twitter, any of those things that can kind of carry themselves through social relationships, not just hey, here's one email we're sending to you. So I think that's one channel of many in which, so anyway, we're focusing a lot on videos, and we also have public forums, as I think we have 2 or 3 of those scheduled.
2 scheduled and 1 kind of reserved in case we feel like.
Do you have those dates that you
I
could
do
share with
have
us now?
So one thing
Sorry.
one thing is kind of what we're waiting to do to kick off all of this media stuff is the
Right.
patrons whatever this petition, because before that it's sort of we think this is going to happen, but let's
Right.
not assume this stuff. So we have a whole calendar ready to launch all this stuff out once this is officially approved tonight.
Okay.
I mean, if you all are going to vote on it, not saying you should, but.
All right.
So, I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just all the dates for all this stuff, sort of okay, now we can get going on it.
Okay. Well, I'll wait for half an hour and then you can share the dates.
Perfect.
Settle down.
I have one more thing, and it's not necessarily a report, more than a request. Prior to Christmas, we seemed to have, we had some parent requests to meet privately with board members or with a group of board members. And I understand the need for communication and the need for answers in some circumstances. But I was hoping that maybe in the next newsletter, Mr. Beecher could put out just a little in-the-box process if you have a question, or if you have a problem, or if you have a joy that you want to go through the channels. I mean, who do we start with? Where does it escalate to? And I guess I'm talking more about problems, but I feel as a board member, I have a commitment to the district as a whole, and I really have a hard time meeting one-on-one with the patron about a problem that I feel the whole board should hear that dialogue. And so maybe I'm just blabbering, but Lindsay, I would really like you to post the process of communication to our patrons. We know it's got to start at the source, and then if it's not rectified, where does it go?
Right.
And when does it reach the board as a whole, not a board member in particular? And,
Nope, that's
and maybe
fine.
that's not a whole board feel. It's a Kim feel. I don't like to meet one-on-one with patrons if it involves a staff member. So
Really, it's that we've talked about it before. Is that chain of command type of thing? And if it's to be honest with you, it starts most directly with let's say a teacher in the classroom. We want that parent to talk to that teacher. And if that can't be resolved, then we'll go ahead and it may go to the administrator, and then it may come to me, and then it may come to you. My question is as I listen to the communications committee, is how to get that out there so people will listen to what I'm saying,
Right.
and we can send it out in an email. We can maybe send it out in a couple different things. But we want to make sure that we try to resolve things. That's what we're here for. We're working together to make this the best school that we can. And that's maybe sometimes sitting down as a teacher and a parent and talking over some things. Because sometimes what you hear is, and I don't know if you feel this way as parents, sometimes you hear one side of the story. And I'm not saying that people are not telling everything, but it's always good to have people at least have a chance to talk that through. So yes, Kim, to answer your question, I'll do that.
Okay.
And to provide you with a little feedback on the situations that we've had before Christmas, they were all according to our policy.
Okay.
Did you talk to the teacher? Did you talk to the principal? Did you talk to Mr. Beecher? And then so the reason why, and I contacted several board members if they could join me, so it wasn't like I was working on doing this by myself.
No,
but the fact of the matter is they were willing to not escalate it to a board meeting if we would sit down and listen. And so the idea was is part of being good board members is we want these issues taken care of before they feel like they need to appear to the whole board. And so the idea is these meetings where they were just needing information. And so it wasn't a matter of that we're gathering up votes or working on any big issues. We're just listening and seeing, and the exact discussion is if you feel this is an issue, we can put it on the agenda, but here it is from a board perspective as to, our sense of it. So the people that met with me had already met with Lindsay, and if they've met with Lindsay, then they've had to meet with the teacher and the principal and Lindsay. So the idea is there wasn't anything that didn't happen through our normal chain of command. So I just want to put everybody at rest is I think we need to be good listeners, and I think with only 5 board members, it's not very realistic to say all 5 board members are going to be available when people have run through the process and still want to talk. And so it never hurts to listen. I think it's part of continuous improvement and wanting to do better, and certainly, redirecting anything that needs to back to Mr. Beecher is certainly the goal. But I think we're mistaken if we're going to drown out a lot of communication if we think they're going to come in here and present in front of the video for some of the problems that they feel they're not being heard on. So I think it's just important that we be good listeners. I always think it's better to have 2 board members than 1, but sometimes those folks want to meet, and we need to make ourselves available to do that after they have run through the process. So I think agreement. And a matter of fact, in all my years on the school board, 5 years on the school board, I've only had it happen once.
Right.
I think it's our job as administrators, and maybe the people in the back row will disagree with this. I think it's our job as administrators to try to get these things resolved before it comes to you. We're the ones that are in those positions, whether it be, is it something that they don't like about our policy? Is it something that they question about our curriculum? Is it something that they question about this or that? And I truly believe that myself and the people in the back, our job is to try to go ahead and talk through this so that we can get this to, to a situation. Not to say that it can't come to you, because you are the final say. But again, we want to try to get any of those type of situations resolved. And sometimes, though, what will happen is people do like to jump the chain, and we just want to make sure that we're following the chain, we're talking about things. I think that we do great things with our curriculum. I think that we do great things with our policies, and we just want to make sure that we're communicating that. So we'll make sure that that happens.
I certainly appreciate communication. I really value when someone has something they want to bring to our attention, they send the whole group an email, and then being able to view your response back to them. I think that provides all 5 of us with the same information and a level of professionalism that we've all heard the concerns. See, I agree with you. I absolutely think communication is important. So my comments weren't intended to shut that down.
No, but I want to make sure that, that I've always followed, I'm following, what our guidelines are as the best I understand them. So, and so I want us also not to be so afraid that we can't get out and talk to folks, because I think if it's, if it's not a specific complaint, we want to have our ears open with regard to what's going on, but obviously do it in a constructive manner, that we're always working to put the district in the best perspective and get to the information to the people that need to know it. So I really don't think we have any
I don't think there's
big
any-
issues in this area, at least from my experience on the board.
Right.
Now, maybe you guys are hearing from more people than I am, but it's just not, I've done it once.
Yeah.
I think from my experience, and again, like, we work for the people who voted for us. Like, I totally agree. Like, and they should have opportunity to come talk to us whenever they sort of, or like share things with us. I think the trick is like, they somehow believe that I have, or we have like individual superpowers. That all of a
They do
sudden,
not
like, you know,
possess.
make this change happen. I'm like, well, I'm 1/5 of the vote, and really, that's outside probably like the purview of what I should be doing. So I think that's the tricky part for me, is really making sure when I do meet with these people, which I'm doing less and less because I think it's less productive. I want to listen, but sometimes people expect this, like, go make this thing happen, and that's really, really hard. And so I wonder if there's a way to sort of bridge that gap and be like, you know what, coming here, how do we make this a little less scary? How could we get more attendance here that, you know, we had 4 or 5 people come and like, hey, we're sharing this issue that we see here and there, and I understand that sometimes that's scary, especially if it's about individual people or buildings or whatever, but I'd love to have, like, invite more people into this context and reduce the scariness. Now, I know I work to make it more scary by putting the camera right there in that respect, but like, how do we begin to kind of, I would love this to be a little more dialogue-y around those issues. Because we do represent we do have a lot of sort of power over the guidance of the school, but only us together, not any one of us individually. So like, how to bridge some of those things, and then also make sure, like, I heard from so-and-so, well, I heard from so-and-so, well, like, actually we all just heard from so-and-so. Like, that'd be ideal, and I don't know, I don't have any solutions to offer, but like, how do we allow patrons to still speak with us, but also like, hey, you know what'd be great is if you came to the next board meeting and shared some of the stuff. Now, again, that doesn't work for all contexts, but I could think of a handful of people that have met with me that I'm like, I should have earlier on just pushed them to come and speak with us. It wasn't a big, scary topic. It was perfect for a board discussion. And then they thought I could make these changes, and earlier on, I'm like, yeah, I could do this, and I think now I'm like, well,
No, I can't.
I can't do it, nor is it really our responsibility, but it's good for all of us to have that dialogue together. So I don't know what that blend is. I'd love to see more of that.
I think as a new person, first of all, I would echo, you're not the only one, I think. I have those same things. I guess I'm trying to figure out how do things work, what's the best way to do it. And I put a lot of thought into this kind of lately, trying to figure out where my head is on some of this. I think it's very important, and I want to put effort towards making people of our district understand that we're here for anybody. I think some people think they kind of have a straight through the path, you know, right to it, just to people, and I think they should, but so does everybody else, right? And that really we're here for all of the students. Not this one, that one, whatever. We need to look at that level. And what was my other point about it? I think Ryan hit upon it. I think we have to be very careful, and that we are, whenever possible, at all times, acting as a board together. The 5 of us, the 4. You know, it's not, and whether or not, John, I don't for a second believe that there's anything wrong with this meeting, but sometimes the perception can be that this is what this person on the board thinks this way. The whole board feels that way. The whole, you know, I don't know. And I think we just need to be transparent. I said that many times when I was running, and I have to own that, right? It's not fun. It's scary. Sometimes, if you feel that strongly about something, and this might be where I'm out on my own on this, but I think as parents, we care about our kids and the students so much. And if it is a problem, I would hope that that fear would not keep me from saying it.
It does, though. I mean,
It
it's been my
does,
experience.
but I think it's fair to
It
everyone that these things have to come to light. I think there's a lot of shadow work that we need to bring things out into the light, and we need to be able to talk about them as honestly as we can. And I think, to Brian's point, we have to figure out a way to make that less scary. It shouldn't be scary. We're 5 people. We're just 5 people.
Terrifying, though.
Yeah.
Well,
It
I think generally it gets taken
But there's
care of
closed
before
sessions,
you
there's
ever
all
even
sorts of
gets
things
to
you can
that
do.
stage. But I just
Yeah.
think that we're not talking about something that happens all that often.
No, but I think it's important, and I was going to save it for later when we talk about the bond, but I think with the bond, there's going to be more people that have questions.
Right.
And maybe what is that way? There's the question that you have that you get answered in the public forum, right? And that's perfect. Then sometimes there's those questions that people that, to your point, you guys, maybe they haven't really been around for this whole ride. They've really got concerns. You know, we've heard patrons come back and say, you're doing A, well, I think Z is what you should have done. What do you, you know, what's our plan for that? How are we going to communicate with them that it doesn't, that we still come off sounding like a unified board? That was a lot of words, I'm sorry, really, to get to that
really good. I
point.
agree.
But I mean, I think we are a board, and none of us on our own have any power. And none of us have any power away from this table to do anything.
Yeah.
So it needs to happen here together.
I wonder too, as a part of this, and we don't have to go too long on this topic, but I wonder if we also just sort of take a stance like, hey, if we want a closed session around some personal issue, like, we shouldn't think of it like, oh boy, we have to, like, no,
Right.
that's exactly what it's for. Let's just close the session, let's talk about whatever we need to do, and I don't know what sort of agendas and timeline we have to put in front of those things, but that doesn't have to be a scary process. Not all closed sessions are some terrifying, you know, someone's getting busted or whatever it is. It's just, this is a time when you can speak privately in front of the board about an issue that is not, you know, suitable for public consumption. That's fine too. That's exactly what that's for. So I don't know how to do it. I think my takeaway from this conversation is when people come to me, when it's not a simple information request, but they really want to share or request a thing from me in action, then I'm going to push them to come to this meeting. And in fact, say we can even have a closed session if you'd like to. If it fits into the guidelines of the closed sessions, which I think the more spicy issues probably all do. It's not a problem.
Spicy.
Well, whatever.
I know.
Because what are the
think
issues,
that's
Gail,
right.
for closed session?
I-
Oh dear.
Well, for employees, you know, it's the 2151
Okay, so if it involves employees, then it can be.
and, yeah, 21.5, and then there's the
Student records, right?
student records.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
to suspend, expel a student, and then to evaluate the competency of an employee. So you've got 2151E is the student. It's usually an expel, student behavior or something. And then 2151A is to discuss records required, authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential. Now within that might fall into students under 18. You know, you need to keep their parents. That, I believe we've already had a closed session under that. So that's kind of it's anything kept to discuss records kept confidential for governmental bodies' possession. And then you have 2151C, which is discuss strategy with counsel for litigation. And then 2151J is to purchase real estate. And then the last one is to disclosure of specific law enforcement matters, investigations, and that's 2151G. And that's about
See,
it.
it's pretty limited, and so that's why I'm bringing that up,
Right.
is the business of the school board is supposed to be public. And so closed session covers very few items. And so that's why, you know, some people are very reluctant to bring some sensitive issues in their eyes, but not qualifying for closed session. So I think we need to be mindful of I think we're going to, you know, we're really counting on, you know, that it doesn't come to us at all.
Right.
I think that's where we got to be. And so I think mainly keeping the focus on process, have you talk to the teacher, the principal, Mr. Beecher, and then, you know, I think there should always at least be two of us, you know, is what we should shoot for. But once again, if
Well, there can't be three of us.
no,
Right.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. But you know, and still sometimes schedules work and sometimes they don't, and so I think that's kind of the nature of what we had happening. So I just wanted to make sure that we're just sensitive to the issue that closed session is so limited, and because they want transparency. So
Yeah, what I heard, I'm sorry. What I was just going to say is what I heard you saying is whether we're doing a bond or whatever we're dealing with the public, we need to make sure that we communicate and communicate and communicate and communicate.
Yeah.
We also need to make sure that we listen. Sometimes I think as educators, we don't necessarily always do that, or I can say for myself, but I would also say that I would put a lot of trust and faith in the people back there to try to, as Kim had talked about, you know, kind of that chain and where we were going with it, to try to get some of those things solved and resolved and things along that line. But it's communication and it's listening. And that's no matter what your business is or the education business, it's all important.
The last thing I was going to say is, we've talked about it for the last couple of years, but I really think that we should bring back the board communication night. Once upon a time, you know, we sat here and sometimes we just talked amongst ourselves because no one came for that particular 30-minute time period where we allowed students to come for 30 minutes. They could speak about whatever they wanted, then parents, then staff. I think it's important for people to understand that we're setting aside time just to listen to them. Not our business, not when we can fit them in, but we're giving them this night to communicate with us.
I got 3 of them that you said. Did I get parents or students, parents, staff? Did I miss?
There was certified
Support
staff
staff.
and support staff, right?
It was
Okay.
separated into 2 different
Yeah.
ones.
That attended board communication, right?
We just picked a random night and it was 30 minutes.
per
and,
group.
Per group. And they could talk about anything, just
I like this.
I
Walked
like
in
it.
and
Certified
chatted with
staff,
us.
support staff, and what was the other one?
I have students, parents,
Wow.
certified staff, and support staff. So 4, whatever you're
I'm not
looking
It's
at.
2 hours.
yeah.
Yep.
I like it. Let's do it.
Was it?
It was productive when for the groups that, or for the people who attended, it was a very valuable experience. We sometimes would have a 30-minute segment that no one would attend, but I guess that just makes you feel like we're doing things right. Yeah.
No news is good news.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I know that took up a lot of time, but I appreciate the conversation.
Okay, anything else on board reports? District evaluation.
They're up there on the screen.
Good news.
Yeah.
The biggest increase since, well, the past, what we have up here, and this is 9 years of history, so 9.57. So Boone County had 12.37 and Story had 9.43. So this will help the budget. It will help
Everything.
drive the tax rates down, and so that's good. Good news. Great news.
Gail, what is that? I was having trouble with this part. What's the 5.47 and the 16? What
You
does
know,
that mean?
I was looking at that, and you know, honestly, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that because I was just sitting here analyzing, and it's like I'm not sure what that is. But I need
Okay.
to double check
I
to
didn't
see
know
what that is.
What that was. If
I was
it was,
sitting here too, thinking
if that was like an
I'm not sure
average or
what that
something
is.
over the past.
Yeah,
or not.
let me get back. It
Okay.
might be. I'm not sure. I'll let you know.
Sure. No
I'm
problem.
not sure. But anyway, for this budget year that we'll be using at the April 15th budget, it'll be a 9.57% increase.
Sweet.
So.
Yeah.
What,
That
and
seems
so what
good
is,
news.
what would have been average? Is it
These,
five?
this is what
Looks
it's
like about
been.
five-ish?
Yeah, so last year's 5.95, and the year before 7. You know, so we've had,
last year.
you know, going back, I'm not sure, you know, I just pulled this much history, so I'd have to go back a ways, but, so yeah, this is
timing.
good news for the budget, so.
Yep.
This also helps our, for bonding capacity. It helps for, you know, our debt limit, so all that, it's great news.
Can you just remind me how this number correlates to our general budget?
Okay, so our taxable valuation, okay, so when we do our April 15th budget, you've got your levies, you've got certain levies, and so you're gonna work with this valuation, and so with the levy can be like, let's say, the simple one is like PEPL. It's a straight 33 cents, $1.67, or $1.34, and then 33 cents, so add those together. But because the valuation increases, it creates more money.
Got it. Okay.
So that's one scenario. The general fund side, you work with the taxable valuation actually drives the tax rate down because you can only generate so much money, and with the taxable valuation increasing, it drives the tax rate
Yep, that
down.
makes sense.
So you have two examples there. On the PEPL side, it generates more money. But on the general fund side and the management side, it'll actually drive the levy down because you're working with more of a tax
Yep.
base.
That's awesome. Okay, thank you so much. That was so concise and perfect.
Thanks, Gib. 2018 district calendar.
We'd like to go ahead and set a date for the public hearing on that for February 12th, which I believe is our next regular,
February 12th is,
the next regular meeting, correct?
and we have to have a public hearing for this, so we'll have to publish it in the paper.
Do you need a motion for that?
Yes, we will.
So moved.
Second. Further discussion.
Where was the second?
John, John, did you call for a second or did you second?
I called for a second.
Oh,
And I got a second. I thought I got a hand
Sorry.
wave.
I thought he did second.
Thanks.
I got confused.
That was exciting.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Anything spicy in there? Anything the public is going to be? Is there anything? I don't know.
We're going to school till July, right?
I think they'll be excited about the holiday break is longer this year, so that'll be 2 full weeks.
Excellent.
And then
Who says that?
Iowa State's spring break is a little bit later than
I
in
was
the past.
wondering if I saw that on there. and
So
I
it
was
does
wondering
still
if that-
align,
Yeah.
it's just later than
Yeah.
we've
Wow.
done for a while.
And this
Oh,
is
wow.
from feedback from the staff, so that, I mean, it's not like it was just some people sitting in a room and coming up with an idea.
Yep.
We usually come up with good ones.
That's right.
All right, that sounds good. So we're on the second reading, with possible action for the amended board policy for employee travel and compensation.
This was helpful, by the way.
Yeah,
Thank you
I
for
did
this
appreciate
together.
So the average of all the people that participated in our survey that we found was the average was 38.93 a day of those. And so so our recommendation as we look at it is, it's around $40. So we kind of thought, well, let's go with the average. And so this is kind of what we were thinking. We did not do anything. The yellow was the only changes, but then, in here is the 45 cents per mile, which we had already discussed and approved maybe a year ago. So we didn't do anything with that, but the information's there. We collected it well. So our recommendation would be, as we talked, Lindsay is going with the average, just rounding up would be $40. And just stay with it, doesn't matter if you're in-state or out-of-state, just keep it simple.
And you can see what the averages were, so that's where we came up with the data. A lot of times when these people travel or any of our employees travel, they'll find that, so it's a challenge to sometimes get some of the meals in the different categories, but I think this will help.
Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Stands approved. Thank you. Okay. New business. Petition received to call a general obligation bond election.
So what it is, John has to acknowledge that he received the petitions, which he has, if anybody wants to see them. He has 4 more names that came tonight, so we have plenty of names. It's the little tally sheet, the little calculator shows the calculation of what we need and how many extra we had. We did have to cross some off, but we still have plenty, so.
It's exciting. I love to see students on here too. This is
Well,
so
some
cool.
of them I was like, are they old enough to vote on?
Or they will be.
They
yeah.
will
be 18.
Do we have to go through and do the work to kind of, certify that? Or
She
did we
was
just
done.
do it?
Yeah.
I know, but is that normal or does somebody
Yeah.
else do we have to do that? No.
Thank you. Did you do that?
Thanks
Yeah,
for doing
thank
that.
you.
Actually,
She did it when you turned in your budget.
We were going to sit down at lunch and do it together, but Vicki Strum, she did it before we even,
That's
she
awesome.
knows, she knows the open enroll people, she knows the out of district, she knows the addresses because she works with it. So she had it done before even we went to lunch. So
Good deal.
she's the one that was like, I have no idea who these people are, or decipher their, signatures, or the addresses. So yeah, that was a lot of help. So good deal.
Do we need to have a motion to accept the petition?
No, just that
Okay.
you acknowledge that you received it.
All right.
There's three, I just want to say there's a lot of people responsible for helping getting this filled, not just signing it, but actually getting the signing, and that way you should,
Thank you.
thank them. There's a handful of people who did that, and that was awesome. I can't remember all their names, I don't even want to say them all, but it was great. Tyler put together a team kind of to do all this work, and that ended up awesome.
Yeah. So, and thanks to the communications group for their work on this, as well as the Vote Yes Committee. That's a lot of work to put that together, so.
Yes.
Very cool.
Okay. In the packet, we had the resolution that talks about a special election to issue up to $14 million in general obligation bonds on Tuesday, April 3rd. And I would entertain a motion to approve that resolution that was in our board packet.
Go for it.
Second. No, right?
Who made the
Move.
motion?
I so moved. Sorry, I forgot to
Deb
do
moved.
that part.
Okay.
I was
Deb
ready to
made the
second it.
motion. Okay.
Second.
Kim.
I got
You two
excited.
down
Sorry.
there
I
hanging.
get kind of excited. I
Yeah.
seconded it.
Any additional discussion that
It's
we'd like
okay.
to have?
It's exciting time.
We've been talking about this for
Yeah,
many
it
years.
is
It's
exciting.
exciting to see this come up.
So this will
Yeah.
get it rolling. It'll be going
Yeah.
out to the circuit auditors.
You guys getting any feedback in the back row? What are you hearing?
I would suggest.
I had a meeting with my coaches today. They were really excited about everything that's on there. Because, 2 months ago, it was a lot different for us and the athletic department than it does now. And so they were really excited about
Good.
it.
Good. Anybody else?
I know my staff's really excited about the things that will affect them most directly at the
Okay.
intermediate school.
Get some clean air.
So I will do
dry
a,
air.
if you want to do a roll call, it needs a roll call vote. So I will,
Oh.
you want me to name the names?
That would be good.
Okay. Brian?
Yes. Is that their official word?
Tyler's absent. Kim?
Yep.
John?
Yes.
And Deb?
Yes.
It's a
Yep.
4.
All right. Well,
I was gonna say
congratulations.
All right.
Good project.
Now the communication stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
We have a 2018 renovation project bid from Hale Architecture. Is there anything you'd like to discuss on that, Lindsay?
The biggest thing is, I think everyone knows that these are the ones that we were talking about that will be working on this summer. Some of those secure entrances, I believe, in the elementary and in the intermediate building. Did that include also, Amy, and yours,
Elementary.
those classrooms?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
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 This one.
Again, I think that I'm not trying to speak for the board. I think what we've said is we feel that this is very important. We are saying that if this, we want to get this started right away. And this would be what we would be looking at, paying Hala to get things rolling on this right off the bat. If by chance, I guess the bond would not pass, we would go ahead and try to we would back that up by Pepple.
The only question I have in that case is that bump anything horrible off the Pepple list that like we're gonna have leaky roofs. I mean, I'm typically thinking what we do is spend the Pepple money on.
I don't think that that's going to cause us to not be able to put a new roof on or anything like that.
We've set our budget and we've included that, our budget that we currently use in there.
Perfect. Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve that proposal.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
All right.
All opposed? Stands approved. Moving right along here. Okay.
Can I talk about this one, John? for a
You
second?
bet. You bet.
So the next one that we have on here is we have the possibility of going into a closed session because what we would like to do is at the end of this night maybe possibly look at what might be happening with our high school principal's position. Now, as Gail had read, whenever we do something that's personnel-wise, if we start talking about, his performance or evaluations or whatever, we need to go into a closed session. So that's why that's on there, and I've talked to Vic about that, and he did request that. My point to tell you that is, if you have questions, we will need to do that. If you do not have questions about that, I believe that we can skip that portion of it and go to the next one. I'm not saying that you have to. That's, you guys are the ones that are running the show. I just wanted to let you know, to be fair to Mr. Vanderpool, that if we're going to talk about things, you know, specifically related to his job, then we do need to go into a closed session. If you say, I look at that next one after that, and I've looked at what the background notes have said, I feel comfortable with that, then we can do that.
I personally have heard nothing but really amazing things about your building and about you in particular. If we were voting, I would say we can skip the closed session.
I'm okay to skip the closed session.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard nothing. No, I've heard nothing but positive stuff too. I do have questions. I mean, I don't have to ask them as a board member. I can ask them just privately to you later, and I don't think it influences my vote at all. So I'm fine skipping the closed sessions. Closed session. I also don't see the closed session as like a negative thing if we did want to have a conversation. So I'm on the fence. I have some questions. They're all sort of like future thought stuff, not necessarily like this last X months of performance things. So we can either talk about them here afterwards or in a closed session. I'm fine with all that stuff. I think they kind of relate to like forecasting of what you want to do and where you see the building going and some of the key areas that you'd like to kind of take the staff and challenges along that way. So as you know, like the board has been very like aware of some of the cultural issues in the past at the high school building. I think that like I'm still engaged, I think, or curious around how those things are going. So if that's appropriate for a closed session, I'd love to talk about it then. If it's not, I can just like, we can go stand in the parking lot for 10 minutes and talk too.
No, I echo the sentiments from Kim. I've heard nothing but good things, and so there's no need for a closed session from my standpoint either.
So am I understanding that we would go on to the next portion of that?
I'm fine with that.
We've been discussing things that we didn't have a chance to right off the bat, just different things, and I'm sure that you can line up a time with Vic and he'll talk to you about some of the different things that he sees happening in the future for the high school, and he's got a lot of good ideas in mind. If that's the case, then possible action on the high school principal's contract for employment for the 2018-19 school year. My recommendation is that contract be offered to Vic Vanderpool. What we're doing is we don't know how much we're going to pay, Vic, sorry, because we got to get that all taken care of when we go through negotiations. But what we want to let you know is you're the guy that we want to have in that position. That would be my recommendation.
Any further discussion?
I just want to add one comment, like, sorry, because the previous one sounded like a little scary. I've heard nothing but positive things about you from students I talk to, from emails I receive. And that's really refreshing compared to the contrast of like just normally when people communicate with me, it's about, you know, complaining about a thing or why isn't this thing fixed. So it's so great because every single response I've heard about you from just talking to students who are babysitting for us or whatever, or from patrons emailing me or from staff emailing me, 100% of them have been positive. So thank you so much for doing that. So yeah, I'm all in favor. Did you approve? You said you moved? I'll second then.
Okay. So I have a motion from Ken.
And a second?
From Brian.
Yep.
And any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It stands approved. Congratulations.
Awesome. You gonna get that catapult back out again and start flinging some of those sandbars?
Not like in charge, I can get a bigger one.
Yeah. All right. Let's do it. You need budget approval? Let's do it.
Congratulations, Vic.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay, Lindsay, would you like to discuss the agreement with Univista?
Yeah, usually we have enough with Iowa State being right in our backyard or we're in their backyard, whatever. But we do have a couple teachers that are picking up their guidance, their masters in guidance, and one of the things that they have set up is a practicum. They're going through Univista. They've set up a practicum to do that here. My recommendation would be that we go ahead and approve that so that we can get those things taken care of. And if you, I'd be happy to talk to you after the meeting if you want to know specifically who we're talking about there. But again, people that are lifelong learners are picking up that master's in guidance and recommend it.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I just had a question, and if you want me to ask you later, that's fine, but, so they were talking about like, so these are our teachers who are wanting to become, get their continuing education, not
Yep.
more than that. But so, and then, is this a contract that says somebody will come in here and like help do that practicum?
I think they're dealing with a person right within our district that's going to be dealing with the practicum.
That's gonna be doing.
Yeah, see, they're like a heartbeat away from getting their degree. They've done all the, like the classwork. I think it's basically only, I don't know if you call it practicum for a guidance counselor. Is that what it's called, Mike?
Yeah, internship.
Internship, thanks. I wasn't sure on the correct terminology, but like I said, they're just, this is the only thing I believe that they have to do.
So it's just the agreement that says we'll have somebody kind of be that
Yep.
guide or whatever for that. Oh, okay, thank you. I just was wondering what I was voting.
That's fair.
That's important. Okay.
I think it's really cool. I think it's great.
I think
I
it's
love
too.
seeing our teachers continue on with their education.
Agreed. Sorry, you had a move and a
So I need a first
So moved.
Brian?
and a
I'll
second
it.
and a second. Further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? And that gets us to the review the financial reports.
It's been pretty quiet. The majority of our expenses will be in January and February because that is, I think I've talked about this before, tuitions will be. So as I was going through here in the summary, the actuals, let me go to page 1. Okay, on here, the actuals, the monthly revenues are $900,896. So basically, we have a loss of, it's not a loss, but as you're looking through, it's mainly the discrepancy is property taxes on the revenue side. The revenues are down because of the collections of the 2 main months is October and April. And so, and it depends on when people pay their taxes. Now, you know, people are talking about prepaying their taxes. We won't, I'm curious.
Didn't hit our budget.
I'm curious if, you know, we receive them a month late. So I'm curious to see if that's really going to happen or not. Yeah, I didn't pay my taxes early, so I don't know if anybody did or not. So, and then looking at the page 2 here, and the red is potentially areas of concern. Green is you're on target, no concerns here, and very minimal. And the state foundation aid is, I was looking at this, but some state foundation aid doesn't always happen every month. Sometimes they send it in chunks, and the state, some of the different pots of money come at the end of the year instead of, you know, in the state aid payment every month. So that was this continuous red here. And other than that, you know, here is this tuition and transportation, and tuition and transportation's only, or I should say, tuitions happen twice a year, payments, and you're going to see activity in January, February, and mainly June. And then, of course, everything in July and August is going to be accrued back to June. So high activity in those areas. The expenditure side looks great for the time where we're at, half of the year. No concerns there. Just looks great. So overall, no big issues that I see. And so then that goes to talking about just some of the, our cash. Let me reduce this down a little bit. Again, our cash balances are very strong going into the year. It's been a continual thing with us, the cash balance. And then the our April 15th budget that you guys approved. Overall, we're great in all areas except the total other expenditures. And this is because our payments are we only do our payments once or twice a year for our bonds. And so
that'll catch back up.
That'll catch back up. So we had big, in December and January, we pay interest and principal. So, and then just some information here on general fund expense comparison. The 88,000 increase in expenditures compared to fiscal year 17 is mainly isolated in the 3 areas of purchase services, supplies, and the AEA flow-through is 32,000 of that. So again, no big concerns. Just salaries and benefits have increased a little bit compared if you're tracking, but still within our the percent that we want to be in. No concerns. So the PEPL budget, the main purchases we had is the E-rate. Remember, Jason came in and talked about that last month. So the purchase order has been submitted, and that's $101,000. Band equipment was purchased. Additional video cameras were purchased, and we had $14,500 worth of middle school HVAC repairs for the gym and the commons, and then we had a kitchen disposal of $2,000 that we had to pay.
Everyone, nice disposal.
The one thing that's been changed is in the nutrition fund. The nutrition fund is no longer responsible for paying for their own repairs. So that needs to come out of general fund or PEPL if it qualifies. So, which is fine.
But that's when you're talking about, we have
Paying
enough money.
disposal.
We've got money already budgeted for those things
Yeah.
already.
Excellent.
So, and then we have a lot of activity going on in the activity fund for all individuals, and we're continually working with the people, coaches, and sponsors to make them aware of their balances. I just billed the fine arts and the fine arts and GEF, and I already received. We do that on a quarterly basis, and so we collect the invoices and send it to the GEF, and they reimburse us for any of their projects that they have approved. And so we just did that in the end of December, and we already received it. I haven't received anything from Fine Arts, but so we're continuously communicating that to the people, the individuals. And then the nutrition fund, again, showing a great cash balance compared to a year ago. And then the revenue showed an increase of $9,700 and an increase in expenditures of $12,000. But, December's an interesting interesting month. You can see that, we had a lot of sickness. We had a lot of, there's just a lot of things that go on, a lot of parties. And then you have, we had to do some investigative work because we're like, this is the first time we show that we're not serving more kids and our enrollment increased. So the first thing I want to make sure is that the software's working, So we went through and did a daily thing showing. And then what ended up being is that on early out days, the high schoolers don't eat. So we lose about 200 students, 200 meals on an early out day. So it's finally caught up to us that we are serving less kids at the high school only. And that was interesting. But I talked to Vic, and he's like, yeah, everybody just leaves, they don't stick around. So, but it's interesting. But
makes sense.
So, so those are, today I sent out all the bills for open enrollment tuitions, and I sent out bills for concurrent and open enrollment and special ed tuitions. So those revenues will be kind of rolling in as school districts approve their bills for the month, and so that's done until June. Okay?
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Gail on any of those? Hearing none. On the consent agenda, is there any items on the consent agenda you'd like to pull off and discuss before we approve them?
I really didn't see anything on the bills. There's not a lot of activity.
Okay.
Of course, payroll's about the biggest items on here like normal. So unless anybody else has a question.
I do have one on the consent agenda, not bills related, but in this is the approval of early retirement. Is that something?
They are.
right?
Do you want to bring them up?
I can't remember because last year we didn't have any, I don't believe, and possibly the year before, I don't remember.
See those ones on the bottom there?
Can you just speak to those a bit and like what that means for the district? Obviously, they're like, it's awesome to see years of service, like almost 30 for some, you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
so great. So I guess my two questions are like financial impact of the
Yeah.
district, and then
I would really feel more comfortable if I have their applications here, if you would just want to look at them.
I think I read through them. It's just I mean, they're in there, right? Like just a form.
Well,
Oh, yeah, they were
I
on
mean,
your.
are you just asking what it means for us as a
Financial.
district?
Well, it
Like-
means for a district, and then also do we do any sort of public recognition for any of the teachers who are retiring? Those are my two questions.
Yes, we do. I'm going to take your second question first. We will do a recognition. Usually we do that at the end of the year, and we recognize any of those people that are retiring. We have a great group here that has given a lot of years of experience to our district, and we're very, very thankful for that. Brian has in his hands right now, you can kind of see what that would be as far as a financial
The
situation.
financial piece on that, a
Yeah.
little bit more detail is,
Yeah.
you will see, what you hope to do is have a cost savings. This is funded through management funds as long as they're age 50, as long as they're 55 years old. There's no cap on the maximum, but there's a minimum of 55. So those stipends are paid out of management fund. So then when those people are at a higher wage, so when you rehire for that position, your goal is to have a cost savings in the general fund.
And we take a one-time hit to pay those. Okay.
The management.
And then what happens is the administrators in the back, they're looking to see, okay, tomorrow morning, when do I need to make sure that we get out and there's a hunt in some of these areas so that we can fill these great people that we have that are taking early retirement.
I just love to
And the
see.
management funds. We got
Yep,
funds.
yeah, we haven't used a lot of them, and we maximum, 5 is the maximum that the board approved, so we haven't maxed that out
Yeah.
for a while, since I've been here.
I don't know. It's just exciting to think like we've had teachers here
Yeah.
like
20
20 years,
Yeah.
20 plus years. You
Yeah.
know, like that's so awesome.
You know what's exciting is, because we all want to be there, but I met with a teacher, and
You mean
he's-
retiring?
Yeah. And I met with a teacher, and this person said, the timing was, I went to my financial advisor and said, hey, this is offered, and the financial advisor said, well, you basically will be able to make what
Yeah.
you're making right now, but not working. And it's like, why didn't you tell me? Wow.
Good work.
Wouldn't we all like to be? I mean, that's what we all work for, and that's how
Yeah.
exciting.
It's exciting for them, but
Yeah.
on the same side, when you look at that many years of experience,
Yep.
you have to think, wow, their program, their classroom is established, I mean, it's sad to see them.
It's a big hole.
Go.
I mean, that's a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
years.
Yep.
And when you add them together,
I know,
yeah,
right?
together, that's
That's
a
a
lot
lot.
of years invested here. That is so cool.
and great people. I mean, I've only been here 3 years, and I think I just met Randy for the first time when he turned in his application. But great people, really good people.
I love Randy.
Yep.
Is there any other items on the consent agenda anyone would like to pull off and discuss before we approve those items? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Stands approved. For calendar, so does everybody have it on their radar for January 22nd for a work session?
Is that at 6 o'clock? Is that what you have?
Yeah.
Now, is it going to be a work session or a special session?
Well,
Have we
let's
decided that?
Yeah.
kind of talk about that. We were kind of visiting on the agenda meeting, and it can be a work session. We wanted to have the flexibility that if we needed to have a special session, if we're like, hey, we're ready to go, it makes no difference. We can do it that night. We can do it in February. There's no, but we asked just to have the agenda so we can do it whatever way we want.
With a possible
But
action.
there's no, we're not, it would seem to me it's probably more February likely, but if we're all like somebody's head and shoulders above the others, then we could actually do it, but it makes no difference. So that was the
Okay.
thought
Work
process. So
session.
it's kind of like the closed section for Vic. It's, we have it so that we could do it if we want to do, but not necessarily
Yep.
anticipate using it. So it's just to give us the full flexibility that we would have.
Just so that the administrative team knows what will happen on that 22nd is they're looking at a construction manager fulfilling that position. So there will be some interviews of some construction managers. And I don't know if we've talked about that administratively in our team meeting or not, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that that's what will be happening that night.
So that's on the 22nd. And then February 12th is our normal meeting. And then as we look at the March calendar, does that second Monday work best for folks, or will the third Monday work best for folks? And we're really kind of working with spring break. I'm indifferent, so I just want to make sure that we'll have a quorum for.
We already, I think
for
we
March.
might have already taken that in
Did we?
consideration. Let me
Did we?
pull up the website.
Preferably outside the spring break week would be best.
Amy, did that come up on our communications committee when we were looking at that?
Not for the board meeting.
Okay.
I will not be here next Monday. I already had emailed everybody that as well, which is fine. I think taking action on taking action. I trust y'all to,
Okay.
I don't need to be here. Either way.
March 19th.
Okay.
So is that after spring break?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was thinking we planned that.
Excellent.
Did we have any dates? Did we want to visit about the dates of the
Yeah, so our first one is February
Forums.
6th.
Okay.
wait a minute.
February 6th?
February 6th. And we did 5:30 for that one.
And we had talked about providing possible childcare, is that right?
Yeah, Mrs. Schnormeyer is working on that.
Excellent.
Sorry, you said
5:30.
5:30.
Okay.
What are
And
you
that
calling
would-
those? Are they yes committee forums
I
or
think so.
just?
No, but it'll be
Alright.
school run, so just public forum,
Public
just
forum, okay.
factual information.
Okay.
Question and answer.
And will those be videotaped too?
Yes.
Or maybe
Live.
We'll
video
do
is
live stream.
live
Oh,
stream, that's
yeah.
probably, yeah. And
Yeah, yeah.
We don't say tape anymore, but yeah.
I was
Sorry.
gonna say, what?
I'm old fashioned.
And then the next one we have scheduled for March 20th at 7 o'clock.
It's busty, Lindsay.
Do you have a location for those yet?
Well, we talked about the auditorium, but then Brian suggested no.
Oh, we're bringing that up now, huh? No, I'm just kidding. The one.
Remember we talked about the dual classrooms up at the athletic.
Oh, that's right, yeah. That's what we wanted because of
How
the,
many people show up?
the auditorium is, it's hard to have kind of intimate, or just like community discussion in that sort of stage setup. And depending on how many people, I don't know, maybe we say auditorium for the first one and see if there's a ton of people, great.
Well,
If n-
you don't have to make that, I mean, just let us know and then.
Yeah.
Any other dates we need to be working on? I know the SIAC was canceled. Is there going to be any reschedule for that, Carrie, or what's the plan with that?
It will be, I want to say the next one is April 12th. So we're not rescheduling it just
rescheduled.
because
We don't have it.
trying to reschedule something like that and get everybody's calendar, but it's just April. I can look and tell you for sure. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I saw your email. I saw.
Okay, it's whenever that is,
Okay.
whatever I said in the email.
Yep. And then,
So I think the last thing, and sorry, Deb reminded me, late February, Lindsay, we wanted to talk about your contract situation. And whatever date works for you in later February, and maybe I should have planned with you beforehand on when
That's
that is.
fine.
But that is coming up, you know, a little over a month away now. Late February, or last week of February, first week of March. At some point, maybe you can send us some dates, Lindsay, as to when that would work for you, and we could figure out when we can all be there and present.
Yep.
Is that okay? I'm sorry, I should have brought that
No,
up
no.
before all of
You're-
this.
you're okay.
Any other items for the calendar? All right, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, a second.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, stand approved.
Alright.
Stand adjourned. How about that? 7:30.
We even had the longest.
So we know who the problem is now.
Yeah.
Who's gone, and the meeting gets over an hour and a half.
Video camera's still on. We're still recording, tape recording.
Tyler knows.
We even had the longest.
I gotta make sure I send him a link then.